Penny, back to you.
We've got it figured out. All right, let's begin.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Welcome. This is our Indigent Defense Commission meeting, June 4th, 2026. It's 2:09. We have a quorum. I'm Laureen Kamalu, filling in as the chair pro tem. We might change that chair if Chair John Quorum is able to join in. And so let's see, the participants. I used to do this so handily. I'm out of practice online now. So let's just go around and maybe just to be fast, I'm just trying to find where I can see here we go, participants. Okay, I'm just going to share names quickly, but we have Matt Barraza, who's our executive director, and then other staff, Soraya and Katrina and Josh, and we have, I think that's it for staff. And then the commissioners who are on so far, we have former Judge Michael Zimmerman. Maybe, are you considered former judge? Or are
Yeah.
you still judging?
No,
Some people,
I'm not judging. I haven't judged for a long time. I mean, I judge all the time, but I 25, 26 years. So
I know that. Yeah, I still think of you in that role. So thank you, Michael. We have Michael Drexel, one of the commissioners as well. And Wally Bugden, right? Wally, your last name?
You've
Aaron
said it
McKnight.
right. Wally
Yep.
Bugden, I'm a defense attorney.
Going off memory because it doesn't show your last name here. Memory is still working for me. Aaron McKnight, Pam Vickery, Rich Morrow, and Tom Ross. And we'll see if there's anyone else who's able to join in while we're doing this work. But thank you, everyone.
And Margaret Lindsay's here as well.
Oh, Margaret, I missed you. Sorry. Thank you, Margaret. Very good. Okay. So the first up is an approval of minutes from, was it just the past meeting? So whoever's had a chance to look at those, ready for any motion, hopefully that they're ready to be approved.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Thanks, Michael.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, second by Wally. All right. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, I think that's unanimous. Very good. Now we'll move to an update from Matt regarding the aggravated murder fund application.
Okay, and I hope everybody had a chance to see those documents that were included in the prior email. But we do have a new application from Summit County. And so what we included as part of that application was their resolution that the county commission adopted in allocating the entry fees to enter and become part of the aggravated murder trust fund. Let me just see here. Okay, there we go. Everyone like our new logo?
Oh, look at that.
The new branding for the state of Utah.
Look at that.
Yeah.
That looks good. Yeah, I like it.
Also includes Department of Criminal Justice. I think we're a little bit early on that, but close enough, I think.
Yeah,
It's close enough. It looks good, Matt.
it really does. That'll be a really good thing. Very happy that has been made in the law.
So Summit County submitted that application. The resolution was passed on May 6th. They're hoping to gain entry so that they can use the fund to provide counsel for the Richens appeal. That appeal was filed on May 26th, but the trial counsel is filing a motion for a new trial. So it'll remain in the trial court for a bit while that's being determined, but just wanted to present that to the commission. We are still kind of new to counties joining, so there's not a whole lot of process in place for this. But I feel comfortable, recommending that the commission approve of this application. I went back and looked at the past 5 years of filings, and this is the only case that's been filed as an aggravated murder in Summit County. So I think they're relatively rare for that county. But I know that the actual trial portion of this case was pretty labor intensive. They did spend a lot on attorney's fees and expert witnesses and the like, and so they did end up spending a lot of money from the county to pay for the defense on the trial. And I'm sure that they would appreciate being able to access the fund for the appellate portion.
Yeah, very good. Welcome to Paul Dodd too. I saw you join. Okay, so yeah, I pulled that up, and it's the resolution that we have. And there's a number in there, number 2. The Summit County acknowledges its requirement to make an equity payment in the fund based on what the assessment would have been for the previous 2 years. And then we can look at that. So, okay, I see there's a formula calculation. Looks like it's $70,411 about, and then a $82,836 maybe. That sound right, Matt?
Yeah, that sounds
Yeah.
right.
Okay, Rich, you've got a question.
Yeah, I mean, the fund's been around now for, I think, since 1999. I'm not sure in the past that we have allowed a county with an ongoing case to buy into the fund, but rather making it prospective or in the future about whether or not they can access the money. Do we have any precedent, or is there anything that prohibits us from saying to Summit County, well, wait a minute, you can't buy in when you have, after the fire, after the insurance has already occurred? And I'm just wondering, I thought we had discussed this a couple of times in the past, and whether or not it was appropriate for somebody to sort of buy in during the course of an active case. And I don't remember what we had decided, or whether or not we had even taken that issue up.
Yeah. So that was with Utah County. They had applied, and that was the Jane case. So that was the case had actually already been filed, and then they came to us after the case had been filed as an aggravated murder case. We did have a discussion about that. I don't think we came to I know we didn't come to a final decision as to whether to approve that application or not, in part because we had some other questions related to the increase in filings in Utah County when the new county attorney was elected. There was a pretty dramatic uptick in the number of those cases that were being filed. And so I had, at the commission's request, gone back to the county manager to try and gather some more information from them before we made a decision, and never heard a response from them after that. So there was ultimately no decision on that. I appreciate the conversation, and also the idea of not buying into it when a case is already underway. I think there may be, an argument that could be made that the appellate portion is distinct from the trial portion, and that it's new attorneys being involved. It's a new process, and so I think that is something that the commission could consider. So that's the history as far as the discussions that we've had in similar situations.
It strikes me that Rich's point is just right on point.
Yeah.
That they're too late. I mean, it seems when the case is pending And then they think, oh, well, it would be nice if we had access to this fund. So maybe we can join now, pay a late fee, and still receive the benefit of the aggravated murder fund. It seems like they needed to have been members of the panel or whatever the term is before the case was filed.
I mean,
Doesn't seem to me.
yeah.
Judge, we can't hear you there. Can you talk? Michael Zimmerman, are you wanting
Oh,
to
yeah,
talk?
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with Rich and Wally. This is kind of a gamble that they take. You know, if Wayne County hadn't opted in, you know, Wayne County would be absorbing costs exceeding its budget. So it's you know, and there are other counties that have declined to opt in. And I kind of share Rich's view that you don't get to come late and ask for forgiveness.
May I,
Mary, go ahead, and then I'll get to Tom and Aaron.
may I add just one thought, which is, from my cynical point of view, one has politicians every 4 years running on tough on crime policies and promises that they will charge every intentional killing in the county as a aggravated murder case, and that's their campaign policy, but they don't budget for that approach until it smacks them in the face, and until they really have to address the reality of that kind of campaign promise. And you know, if the county's officers are going to, you know, political officers are going to have that approach, they need to sign up ahead of time. They need to accept the reality of that approach sooner rather than later.
Thanks, Mary. Tom.
This may be a question more for Matt from the conversations that he was having with Utah County. I know Utah County ended up doing an RFA in the session and received funding from some funding, not everything I think they were asking, but from the legislature. But in those conversations, was there ever a commitment or an agreement that they could come into this fund and withdraw and take money from it, and that's why they went the RFA route? Or did they have an option, and was there something worked out there?
You know, that after we went back and asked for some additional clarification, I think this is speculation on my part. This is not based on actual conversations, but they kind of went radio silent. So I think that they kind of saw the writing on the wall as far as the fund goes, and decided to self-fund that case. And then there were other cases that followed, including the Robinson case, which you're talking about, Tom, where they came and asked the legislature for some money through the RFA. When around the time that they were heading back to the legislature for that, I did reach out again to the county manager, talk to him a little bit to see if they had any interest in joining the fund again. And the indication or the response I got was no, they were going to continue to self-fund those cases. So I don't think that they have any plans. Margaret, I don't know if you've heard any word. I know that there has been some talk of maybe Utah County public defenders handling those cases in-house as they did before, but I'm not sure if that's been an agreement or not.
I don't think that anything has been decided yet. So I know there is talk, but the last I heard from Debbie that nothing had fully been decided yet, but it could well happen.
Yeah.
Well, based on that, I tend to agree with the comments that have been made in regards to cases already happening and now somebody wants funding. Then I think if we all could pay our car insurance the same way and not have to pay anything until we crash and then join and pay at that point, I think we'd all choose to do that. But I think between that, which seems pretty clear to me, and then also having a space for to say maybe a county could never ever join in the future if you didn't do it back in, I think what Rich was saying in 90, late 90s, 99 or whatever, you can never join doesn't seem right either. But it feels like if you were going to join and you had no case at play, so nothing's forcing it, you choose to come in and join, that there probably should be a pathway, even if it includes some back paying in of some type to, and I don't know if we need to do some legislation or work on a policy that more clarifies that, but it does seem a little bit unfair to those that have been paying all along to just join once you have a case.
Well, yeah, and sorry, this is Todd Weiler. I just jumping in at the tail end of this conversation, but didn't we have Utah County try to join when they had 3 cases a year or 2 ago?
Yeah, we talked about that, Todd, before you joined.
Okay. Yeah, there's got to be some buy-in or some waiting period, or I mean, I'm gonna skip health insurance because Obama changed it, but you can't get in a car accident and then call up Geico and say I want coverage, and that's we can't allow the counties to basically treat us like a car insurance company where they're calling us after the accident has happened.
Thank you. Aaron?
Yeah, thanks. I agree that I think it's bad policy that we allow someone to just come in and reap the benefits without having put anything in yet. I guess kind of counterpoint, something I think may be worth considering is, based on what Matt said about them not having had a case like this for, I think it was the last 5 years. Is that right, Matt?
That's right. Yeah.
Perhaps we want to do what we need to get them in on the aggravated murder fund. I think, I mean, I suspect that the Indigent Defense Commission has a goal of getting all of the small counties that don't have these types of cases on this fund eventually, so that everyone's kind of covered. And this might be a way to get them in. Maybe there's some sort of compromise along the lines of, yeah, is there some sort of a buy-in, or can they give us some sort of agreement or commitment that they're going to stay in for a certain number of years to ensure that they do end up paying their fair share? Is that maybe something that we can require of them to participate?
Thanks, Aaron. And I scrolled down and I had missed seeing that this resolution includes assessments for kind of back pay. It's 2024, 2025, 2026 for a total of $233,346 if they get to be able to do this. Was that you, Michael, wanting to say something?
Yeah, I think Utah County went to the legislature, and I'm assuming that they had SWAT there to get money paid without having to join. Summit County is this Summit or is this Wasatch? It's Summit.
It's Summit. It's Summit.
Summit County is rich, and it probably doesn't think it needed to join. And I think in both of those situations, what are we going to do if it's, a little county that for various reasons has refused to join? I think the strongest incentive actually for people to join is seeing that people can't come in and get coverage after the fact.
Thank you. Rich?
Statute allows them to buy in, and allows any county that's not a member to buy in. They have to pay a certain number of back dues then that's the way the statute's always been. So they can buy in. The question that we have here is, can they buy in with a current active case? So for Summit County, I suspect we could say, you're welcome to buy in. The fund just won't cover an active case, the Richlands appeal. But subsequent cases, if they pay the back fees that are set by statute, and that's why there are back dues, because those are set by statute. And so going forward, Summit County, if they have a case that happens, let's say we sign a contract today, they have a case that happens tomorrow, they would be covered because they would have the insurance in place and they would have paid their back dues and then made the agreement to continue paying their yearly amount that they're required to pay. So, but they are entitled to buy into the fund. There's nothing that prohibits that. It's just a question of whether or not we will cover an active case that's already been filed, and that's where I think we're probably mostly in agreement.
Thank you. Yeah, any other comments or questions about that?
Yeah, maybe one quick one. This is Tom and Matt, whether you know this or Senator Weiler. So the fund itself obviously was created, and was there any legislative money put in it, or has it all been funded by counties participating and paying in dues?
My understanding it's all county funded, that there was no state appropriation or contribution to the fund when it was created.
Okay.
I think Tom, I can answer that because I was an original member of the aggravated murder board. It's all county money. There is a provision in there, Tom, that if the fund runs dry, that the state will put additional money in with the promise that it will be paid back when the fund replenishes its money from it's actually a mill levy based on population in each individual county. And we've never, as far as I can recall, and I think that's been almost 30 years, we've never had to get state funding. There's always been sufficient funding in the aggravated murder board money to be funded completely by the counties.
That's
Okay.
great help.
I think that lessens a little bit what Margaret was saying, in where there's policy that the legislature can change. And I could see a connection potentially if the legislature had funded it initially or put in a significant portion, policy changes. If we see that that's pushing these cases forward more, then there might be an avenue to go to the legislature and talk about that. But it's less likely if there was never funding put in. It sounds like what Rich is saying is the state could be the backdrop to fund. It's kind of like a loan to provide funding to this program with the expectation it would be paid back over time through the dues. So I don't know. It's not that could never be a conversation, but it has less weight in my mind if the legislature never put money in to begin with.
Yeah, thank you. Okay.
Do you need a motion? Do you need a motion at this point to tell Summit County that we're not going to approve, to explain to them that they can, my motion would be, they certainly can join, but they are not entitled to use the aggravated murder fund to apply to the Richlands appeal, which is a pending case. If you need a motion, that's my motion.
That's a motion. And we do need to take action, right, Matt?
Yes, yes. I think I'll need to report back to them.
Okay. All right. So there's a motion. Is there anyone?
Seconded.
Second by Michael Zimmerman. Okay. All right. Then let's go ahead and take a vote. All who are in favor of, any other discussion on the motion? Okay, then let's go ahead and take a vote. If you're in favor to approve that motion, please say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, and is there anyone opposed?
I am not opposed, but Mary Corcoran needs to show as abstaining from voting on this. I represented as counsel a material witness in the Richlands case and appeared at trial on behalf of the witness, and I think I should recuse myself on voting.
Thank you, Mary. Yeah. That sounds right. Good, thank you. Okay, and Josh, if you're doing the minutes, did you capture everything you needed?
Yes, I did.
Awesome, great. Okay, thank you. All right, we will go to the next.
Okay. To the main event here for our grant review for the upcoming fiscal year. Just to kind of set the table here, we are coming out of the legislative session with a flat budget. We did receive 700,000 in one-time funding. However, that one-time funding is funding that we've received. Originally, it was in FY24 as one-time funding, and ever since then, it's been renewed as such. So essentially, we have no additional grant funds for any new positions or new grant requests. If you've had a chance to look at the applications, though, you'll see that there were a number of requests for new funding. And that's something that we actually, with our conversations with the county, we've been very clear at what our budget's going to look like this year. But we also say if there's something that you think is very important, that you think we should know about what your needs are, please let us know so that we can then take those to the governor's office and to the legislature in the coming year so that they know what the needs are throughout the state. As a reminder, we have a tiered system that the commission adopted where it prioritizes grants according to what the requests are. The first tier, the highest priority is for renewals. So those are grants that are already in place that are asking to be renewed for another year. Tier 2 is grants that would increase management capacity. So that's geared more towards new managing defender positions. Tier 3 is recommended attorney positions. Those are positions that the IDC staff has recommended alongside the county request based on the data that we've collected through the year. Tier 4 is recommended staff positions. Those would be social workers, support staff, investigators, and the like that, again, there are joint recommendations. And then Tier 5 is all other requests. So with all of that in mind, these are the total requests for each of the tiers. So Tier 1 with renewals, it's just shy of $7 million. No Tier 2 requests. There were approximately $500,000 in new attorney positions being requested. $40,000 in a staff position that was requested. And then Tier 5 is $415,000 in compensation increases. So that was the lowest tier there. Oh, this looks a little wonky here. But one thing that we had discussed with the commission and then also with the counties throughout the year is because the grants budget has been pretty static for the past few years. We wanted to know if there are any grants that were in place that weren't quite working as well as originally intended, or if there were other needs that people wanted to consider as far as maybe moving grant funding from one position to another. We had these conversations with the counties. We said that we would talk about it, but we also said, you know, everything is ultimately up to the commission to approve. And so we wanted to have these candid conversations and be collaborative, but then also we were clear that just because you made this request, it didn't guarantee anything. And we did get some requests for reallocations, and they were, I would say, for the most part, pretty conservative. I think people were very thoughtful. The managing defenders were very thoughtful about changes that they thought could be helpful and could improve the delivery of indigent defense services in their county. This first one here has actually been voted on by the commission already. This was the 6th District Regional Youth Defender, so that's already been approved, but I wanted to put it up here because it's going to actually be implemented in July. Most of our grant-funded contracts run through the fiscal year, and so even though this project was approved by the commission back in December, it will be implemented starting July 1st, so that'll be a change. Beaver County has requested that they have just one contract. It is handling both adult court and juvenile court. And the request there would be just to take that contract and split off 25,000 of that grant amount to create a juvenile court contract. So again, this is revenue neutral. It's asking to increase specialization to improve the delivery of those services there in Beaver County.
Can we ask questions as you go, or do you want us to wait until we get to the end?
No, please interrupt me.
I think the Beaver County one, there's an assumption that $25,000 would be commensurate with the amount of juvenile court work versus just general public defender contract work. Is that what your sense is as staff on that particular reallocation request?
Sorry, can you say that one more time for me?
Yeah. So as I see it, the Beaver County request is to say, let's take $25,000 out of the general public defender contract that exists, that I think is a $65,000 total spend.
Yep.
Carve $25,000 out and allocate it specifically towards the public defender contract for juvenile court. And I just wondered, is it the case from your point of view, from your review of this, that $25,000 is commensurate with or proportional to the amount of work that would be needed for the juvenile court contract? Is that the idea?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
not a huge caseload there in Beaver County for juvenile court, but it would allow for that specialization. And there are attorneys, practitioners within that district in Iron County who specialize in both child welfare and youth defense, who would be able to handle those cases.
Thank you.
Matt, this Tom, maybe what would help me in my mind is, I sat down because my original intent was to email you things like you had asked me for it since I wasn't going to be here. And when I sat down, started going through it, I just realized how difficult it was going to be without two things. One is, and how much money do we actually have?
Yeah.
So if we were to go with that tier, that first tier, which is we all agree is the priority, how much money do we have on top of that? That would help me to even know how we split it.
Yeah.
And then of course, the other important part of this is it's hard to do it in your own silo. When we're all talking together, it makes much more sense. So,
Sure.
But I think for me, that'd be helpful if we knew how much money's left over after the tier one.
Well, and we're as staff are not recommending anything aside from tier one. That's our recommendation.
Okay.
Just because a significant portion of that 700,000 of that tier one funding is one-time funding. And I think one thing that we've seen over the past few years is even one-time funding is hard to come by in the current economic climate. And so I would not be recommending any new grant requests just because of that, because there's so much uncertainty going forward that, Tom, better than anybody how much of a fight is there just to get the one-time funding to keep these current grants in place. And so I wouldn't want to add on to those. If there are any, there may be some savings from, and we'll see in further down the list, but in grant funds being reduced. So a couple of the contracts, there was a request to reduce the amount of the contract by the managing defender. One of the good things about having that new Southern Regional Managing Defender is that she's able to really compare the caseloads and knows the caseloads pretty intimately as far as, you know, how much work is being done and how much is needed. And so she actually recommended a reduction in a couple of contracts by about $10,000 each. That's not a whole lot of money, but one thing that I'm hoping that we can do, if we do have any grant funds that are left over, that we can look to use those for the innovation grants. We haven't really been able to do that for a year or two now. And I think that would be a better use of some of this one-time small grant funding rather than trying to fund a permanent position, but looking to some of those short-term innovation grants like the one that Utah Juvenile Defenders Association did with the NJA, the non-judicial project that was so successful.
Yeah,
Okay. All right.
that was a great question, Tom. So if I understand then, do you want us to still go through all of these, or have you done a slide or just here's what we know we can do? And
well, and so this slide that I'm going through now, these modifications, these are part of that tier 1 figure. So that's why I'm kind of breaking those down specifically.
Great.
I will go through the other requests just so that the commission, that you all can see what those are. And if there's anything you would like to comment on those, this is a good time to do it. But any other, did that answer your question, Tom?
Yeah, that did answer my question. And, you know, Matt, to your point about how hard it's been to get new money, additional funding, you know, we're all hoping that 2027 is a better budget situation than 26 session, and the 25 session even was tough. But I've been wondering a little bit, and it'll be interesting. We can go through your PowerPoint, but it might be worth talking at the end. You know, you put a lot of effort and time in trying to get new funding. I think we help as well at CCJJ, and I know there's others, Senator Weiler, but it seems like doing it the way we're doing it, we don't really have the opportunity to sell them on the need. And I looked at what happened with, and it's not just the judiciary bill. We see this happen, but the judiciary bill that came forward allowed the courts at least to be able to say, this is why we need additional judges. This is the problem. Now, I'm not acting like there was nothing else playing into this. There was, but it made me wonder if, and maybe Senator Weiler could even weigh in on this, would we benefit from trying to run a piece of legislation and then take these requests that are not getting funded? And I think people are just looking at it as it's more of the same, but they're not realizing with adding to the courts, the system has been shifting to more incarceration, that maybe that would give us at least an opportunity to have conversations in committee hearings and to get the legislature to understand the growing need for this. It's not just static keeping us up to date. We need more. I don't know, something that it'd be worth talking about.
Tom, I like that idea just for the main reason is that every time a new juvenile court position gets added in a district, that comes with it, you know, the state also paying for the additional attorney general cost and the additional guardian ad litem cost, right?
Yes and no. So when we, can you guys hear me?
yeah,
When we fund a judge, the fiscal note is for the judge's salary and benefits, and for the clerk, and maybe 1/4 of a legal assistant or something like that. So it's under 500,000. I do not believe that it's our process to fund the AG's office. Aren't a lot of those done from the county? Because our fiscal notes are only what impacts the state budget.
And that would be the attorney general's office who processes on the child welfare.
So maybe
Line
we should run
item.
a bill to say that every time a juvenile court judge is added, that the fiscal note needs to include the cost for the AG, et cetera, because right now I know that's not included in that fiscal note. But Tom, back to your issue, what would the bill be? How would we be, or is the bill just symbolic? Or is the bill designed to generate a fiscal note so we can show how big the fiscal note is? So I'm not opposed to the idea, but I'm not understanding what the bill, how would we amend the Utah code? What would we make a new law saying?
So I think it could be symbolic. I would like it to maybe have a fiscal note with it, but I think the biggest challenge we have is we talk with the chairs in this process, the executive office criminal justice chairs, but we never really have an opportunity to demonstrate the need. And so we give numbers, but I'm looking at, would it benefit the legislature to know that these are all the requests coming forward each year that are fairly significant, but we're not adding any money, and yet the demands are increasing. And to your point, that it'd be great if it automatically was attached to a fiscal note whenever, like you said, a judge, but that may be not possible. I don't know. It just seems like we need more conversation about this.
Thank you. Michael Drexel?
Well, I was just going to add, when we request that the legislature change the statute and increase the number of district or juvenile court judges, it's based on a weighted caseload study of those judges' workload. And it seems like if adding additional people around the appointment of a new judge is to be done wisely, it ought to be based on the workload of those entities or individuals specifically. I don't know that it's the case that every time a judge gets added that there's new workload for instance, prosecutors or defense attorneys or AGs within the juvenile court system. It may be the case that there's some new things, but we ought to be assessing the actors in the system based on their workload, not on just some arbitrary decision to increase a number elsewhere. For instance, if Salt Lake County or any county decides we're going to increase our number of prosecutors, should the courts immediately pipe up and be like, well, they've got a new prosecutor, so we need a new judge? We ought to have to demonstrate the need based on the judicial component of that workload. Anyway, just FYI on that.
No, I respect that. I'm just telling you from my perspective in the juvenile court, we've in the 4th district have added 2 new positions basically in the last 3 years. Well, in every court, the caseloads really show, and with the way that the juvenile courts conduct their court, which is, 4 to 5 days a week, and the caseloads that, I really need, a new full-time child welfare attorney and a half-time delinquency attorney with every court that we have. And so when as a practical matter, when a new judge position does open up, those are the positions that the county must bear the brunt of. And whereas if there's any increase for the attorney generals or the guardian ad litems, that is coming out of the state budget.
Thank you. Pam.
That's just my point.
Thank you.
I was just going to say, I really agree and appreciate Tom bringing this up because this came up a lot during the session, because when we were staffing things like with Sentencing Commission and CCJJ, like to Margaret's point, a lot of agencies put fiscal notes on all of that stuff, but and I think that it does, the AGs are then able to kind of see what's coming, and they might contemplate some of those things when they're requesting their state budget. But then, you guys all saw it, like, all of those things were coming, but there wasn't like, how do we start the conversation of, if you're going to talk about that, you need to also talk about, should there be funding for the Indigent Defense Commission to support the work or the increase in work that is going to happen? I totally agree with Michael saying we've got to tie it to our own individual caseloads, because exactly what Margaret just said, right? Like in Utah County, a new judge might result in her need for a full-time child welfare attorney, but it might only be a part-time delinquency attorney, right? So we obviously have to evaluate it within our caseloads, but we've got to be able to talk about it more. I mean, as like it is true that in juvenile court, it is really hard to have attorneys share courtrooms. It does not work schedule wise. And so, but I just think if there's a way for us to even be able to talk about it or go back to our counties and be like, okay, there were changes and now you've got to address that. But really, it would just be so great if we could talk about it during the session about, and what do we think the possible impact would also be, like how can we help and foresee like some support to the IDC to support these initiatives? Because I feel like we're getting lots and lots of more work, and then as we've seen, like the budget hasn't been like commensurate with what's happening. And so how do we start that conversation up there? And you know, I mean, if there's just a way to even talk about like we should at least be a part of the conversation when those things get discussed, or the IDC should the IDC be allowed to put a fiscal note on that stuff, not join it with the court, but put their own fiscal note on it based on what we project our caseloads to be from that.
Thank you, Rich.
No, and I agree with what everyone said. I mean, a lot of times when you're adding additional judges, you're adding additional calendars. And I think sort of Margaret and Pam both raised the point. Oftentimes we have to add additional lawyers simply because to accommodate the calendar. So when you create a whole new calendar, it's a whole new set of cases at a different time. And if you don't have the personnel that's assigned to that court, you simply need to add more people.
Yeah.
You
But
know,
that's
and
not a
so
state cost, which is all I'm saying. So
that's right.
the legislature doesn't have to fund that part of it.
No, well, that's right, but it does, but Senator, it does go into the questions like my funding partners ask me those questions, like
Yeah.
what does that mean, and if they thought about it. I mean, you know, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. Local funding partners are often inquiring about why that's the case and why it looks like that.
Yeah.
And so.
No, that's fair. I'm just saying in terms of the bill passing or not, we only have to fund the state portion of the fiscal note. I think the county portion and local government, it's reflected on the fiscal note, but it's not mandatory that we fund that.
That's right. No, that's right.
And Senator, just based on what I'm raising, was really the IDC side that because it is state funded, to have some way for us to have these conversations. Maybe it's an interim session that, you know, IDC could present on the increase in demands that have happened over the last few years. I don't know. It just seems like we need a better way to communicate it.
Yeah, Michael.
I have a question to the senator. If the IDC is a state agency and the IDC is impacted by it, is it out of range to expect that in making the direct allocation for, as you say, a judge and the judge's staff, that the state should take into account that it's imposing on another state agency automatic cost increases?
So yes and no. And let me answer this way. So if the bill absolutely required Matt to go out and hire another FTE or a half FTE, I think that could be considered. But because the IDC is using grants and because the grants are contingent on state funding, I don't think it's a captured cost for the fiscal note, unless it was mandatory that the IDC would have to go out and hire another one of its own employees. Michael, do you see it that way? Did we lose Michael?
Michael Drexel?
Yeah, he's nodding.
Sorry, my keyboard stopped working. Yes, I see it that way. I don't know. This is an interesting conversation, though. You know, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, when we were in the circuit court model and the state took over the responsibility of funding all the state court judges, it was a very different conversation. And now maybe there is a need to have this conversation. It's so challenging to get judges funded already. And I think everyone would agree that it's a good thing to be able to move cases more quickly so they're not waiting on clogged court calendars. But this is part of what comes out of expanding capacity in one place, is that there needs to be some attention given to how the capacity expands in other places, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the state is a bigger player than it was 30 years ago, 40 years ago, when we consolidated the courts, took over the county courts, built the courthouses and all the rest of that.
Yep.
So the system doesn't look like it did when they started delimiting what was state and what was local.
Yeah. You know, there was the effort a couple of years ago, and Senator Weiler helped us with this bill to start a pilot project to have child welfare defense attorneys be state employees as part of the IDC. And you know, the argument there was that the AG, the prosecution in those cases, is a state-funded employee. The guardian ad litem are state-funded employees, and so it would make sense to have defense be state-funded as well. And then it would be easier to, you know, keep the pay parity for those parties in line because they were all kind of in the same boat and getting the same COLAs at the same time and such. You know, unfortunately, there was some resistance to that in the committee that we presented that to, but maybe it's been a couple of years. Maybe that's something that we can take that off the shelf and give it another go.
Yeah, great discussion. That was, I kind of lost where we were. You'll have to help me, Matt.
I think we had gotten as far through Beaver and the reallocation request there to peel off some funding to create a juvenile court defender contract.
That's right. So, like, as far as all of this really good discussion, I mean, is there something that this group wants to say, hey, we need to do such and so? I worry that, you know, all the great discussion, we'll have to figure out what we said in the future, or is there something that we know we want and need to do in the interim even?
Well, we are, you know, as far as staff goes, we are working during the interim to just raise awareness generally about the IDC and what we do and what our needs are. So we're meeting with legislators and then, you know.
Yes, I know this. I don't know if the others know. Yeah.
We've been strategizing about working with the counties and with UAC in particular to try and see if we can get some broad support and some make that a priority because if the state is not funding this adequately, then it falls on the county to pick up the slack there. So it's definitely in the county's interest to try to motivate the legislature to increase funding for indigent defense statewide.
Let me just say, with the primaries at the end of this month, you know, my ballot's sitting on my kitchen table already. We're going to know for all but maybe 2 or 3 of the districts who the new legislators are going to be. So I would strongly encourage you, Matt, you and Adam, to start reaching out. So, for instance, if Lorraine's co-commissioner Bob Stevenson beats Trevor Lee in his primary, which I think he will. We ought to not wait until January to reach out to Bob Stevenson. And there's going to be another 14 or 15 Bob Stevensons around the state that we could be planting seeds with during the next 6 months.
Yeah, I have been watching Republican primaries more than I ever have.
Yeah, and you know, there's a few Democratic primaries too. So, but I'm just saying, let's not sit on. I'm not accusing. Let's not waste those 5 months because they could be very productive with the new guys and gals.
Right, and then when it gets time for them to be sworn in, they're just being, you know, inundated with information.
Yeah. So if we're reaching out to them in July, they're going to be thrilled because it's like, oh, this is something new. Whereas in January, it's going to be like, I don't have time for you. So anyway.
And Matt was very proactive. He actually had talked to both of us who are the county people in this commission to discuss together. And so, yeah, we do kind of have a plan. And what you all have been saying, I think ties in really well with, you know, everyone is seeing the need. Yeah. All right. What do you want us to talk about next, Matt?
Okay, well, let me just continue with some of these requests here. Cache County had a really drastic budget cut on their end. Their county was running a deficit, and all the agencies had to make some pretty extreme cuts. Mike McGinnis, the county the managing defender there, took I think it was a big pay cut himself. Fortunately, the timing kind of worked where one of his contract attorneys took a full-time job as in-house counsel. So Mike picked up that contract, and so he is doing casework in addition to the management duties that he takes care of. But his request is that he'll just continue to handle those cases, but then that would be assigned to his managing defender duties as well. So that would fill the gap that he was forced to cut by the county. Summit County had a request. They have a $15,000 grant currently for a paralegal. Unfortunately, though, that's being underutilized. They have 3 attorneys doing work in adult court, and I think they're also practitioners, and the paralegal is a contract paralegal, and I just think there's kind of a disconnect there. And what they requested is that rather than spending those funds for the paralegal, that they be allowed to use those funds to get Westlaw licenses with the co-counsel option, which allows them to do paralegal type work and drafting through Westlaw. So they would have those individual licenses. I think that would result in some savings. I believe the amount that it would take to fund those would be probably a third of what the paralegal position is costing. Washington County.
Were you going to ask something, Michael, about that point?
On cash, not Summit. Yeah. On cash, if you add $42,000 to what the system is putting in for the managing defender position up there, it ends up being $218,000, which makes that position the most highly paid, at least what I could see in the tables, the most highly paid position of any managing defender around the state. Now, that's obviously managing defender plus doing actual a court contract, and so maybe that's the reason why, not just managing defender. But does that establish a precedent that is on your mind at all, Matt?
So I think that, and I don't know if you're looking at the main table that Katrina put together. I don't think that 218. I'll have to double check, but I don't believe that took into account the cut. But let me take a look at that really quickly. That may include total compensation. That might be fringe.
Might be salary and benefits, even though it's on a salary table. That would be. I'm
pretty certain he's not making over $200,000 in wages.
Well, he may deserve that much. I don't know. I don't know what the situation may be. That's part of why I ask. And part of it is, if you're already being compensated, this is a question I had when I looked at it. If you're being compensated at $176,000 from the system for being the managing defender, and is there enough time in the day to be the managing defender and take on $42,000 of contract work and do both roles effectively? I don't know him. I would assume that he's thinking, yeah, I can do both effectively, but I just wanted to ask about that.
No. And unfortunately, Katrina had to jump off to let somebody into her house. So I can pause and look at that and come back, or we can put that aside. But
yeah, we can stick a pin in it. It's fine. The other question I had on cash was, it looked like the part-time juvenile conflict position that was eliminated was an entirely grant-funded position.
Right.
Because the $42,000 was part of the FY26 grant. Did the county decide to eliminate a IDC funded position, 100% IDC funded position? That's what it looked like in the materials.
No, and what happened was that individual left. That grant is still in place but basically Mike took it over, so he filled in for that position. What is being proposed on that table is that that position just be folded into the managing defender position. So it would be kind of a hybrid position where he would be acting as managing defender and handling the child welfare or the juvenile court conflict cases, which is not uncommon in some of the smaller systems where the managing defender will have some a certain caseload in addition to the managing defender duties.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Matt. That's
So
helpful.
yes, the county did not. The contract is still as is and currently in place.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Sorry I missed you.
Washington County. So Washington County has a new judge that was, so kind of going back to that theme of the new courts and the new demands on the different systems. Washington County currently has grants where IDC is funding part of their appellate contracts. So their request is to move that to pay for a new district court position. I think some of you are aware of, but Washington County, so they used to be a second-class county, and they were just over the threshold, and it kind of stuck in their craw that I think I can say that on a recording that's innocuous enough. They were a little perturbed that them being just over the threshold of a third-class county into a second-class county made them ineligible to receive our appellate services through our appellate division. And so a couple years ago, they ran a bill through through one of their representatives to reconfigure and to reset the thresholds for the different county classifications. That would have made them a third-class county and would have made them eligible for IAD services.
So Matt, I have to interrupt you because we don't have any second class or third class counties. What we have are counties of the second class and counties of the third class.
I'm sorry if I offended any
You
members
offended
of
everyone.
counties of the
Senator,
second
thank you for
class.
sticking up for us.
High class counties and low class counties.
I stand corrected. In any event, we have a big Davis County contingency in this call.
Yes, be careful
Be
what
more
you say.
careful. So they ran that bill. There was a fiscal note attached to it for IDC because it would have required us to hire a couple more appellate attorneys to absorb those cases. And they weren't able to, or they felt that they weren't able to get that fiscal note over the line. So they did this kind of complicated amendment to the bill where they became a third-class county under the new, a county of the third class under the new cutoffs, but then they had a carve out put in there where IAD services did not apply to Washington County, even though they were now newly a county of the third class. That was last legislative session. This legislative session, they went and they were successful in obtaining some one-time funding to pay for their appellate services. So they got an RFA to do that just for this 1 year. And so now that they have that funding, then that frees up the IDC grant funding that they have currently paying for part of their appellate services that they could use elsewhere. And so they're requesting that that be modified, amended, and moved so that they can hire a new attorney to help with the court expansion there. So that's all one-time funding, so I'm not sure what their plans are for next year with that appropriation that they got for the appellate services, but that's the background there with them.
Matt, is that the 200,000 that's noted
Yeah.
on the reallocation sheet? Okay.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
that's one-time
That
FY
was one time.
26 funding.
Yeah, it was one. That was another thing where it was passed as FY 26 funding, but it was clearly, up in the RFA, it was clear that it was intended for Washington County. We have non-lapsing authority at the IDC, and so we were able to roll that over for FY 27.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Matt, this Tom, just so I'm clear, maybe I missed on the tail end, that it's one-time funding that is they're going to have to apply for again next year, and I assume that's their intent.
I guess, yes. I think they're taking it day by day. These are kind of making it up as they go, as far as
What it means, though, Matt, isn't it, that if we were to say, yeah, let's reallocate the funding from the appellate contracts in Washington County to fund new district court public defender contract T, and if IDC funding stays about the same, then that we would probably renew that funding in future years. But if they can't secure more funding for the appellate services, the one-time funding that they've got, then they may not have appellate representation unless they're going to dig into their own coffers and find the money. Is that the idea?
That's exactly right. Yep.
Can we do our funding contingent on them getting ongoing funding? So, for example, because it does seem a little bit potentially messy if they lose their funding. Does that mean they come back to us to reallocate again, or what?
So we're going to reach out, and we've been having conversations with them since the legislative session ended, and we were not aware that they were going after that funding until we saw it on the calendar. So we are working to collaborate with them for the next legislative session, so that we're not crossing wires like this. I think it's in everybody's best interest that their appeals are handled with ongoing funding rather than year to year. And if they want to run a bill, what I think they should do, and we're going to see if we can collaborate on this, is that I mentioned the previous amendment that kind of did a carve out so that IAD wasn't that they weren't eligible for IAD services for appeals. I think probably the cleanest way to do this is to work on an amendment to strip out that exception so that IAD is responsible for those appeals, but then have the fiscal note attached to it so that we can handle those and staff up to handle those appeals, but then collaborate together to get that fiscal note over the finish line.
What would the IAD cost be to handle the anticipated number of appeals? Do you remember?
Yeah, they have I believe what we had put on there, and part of that's some unknowns. So the district court appeals are a little bit more certain, I think. But I believe we were saying it would be 2 FTE to handle those appeals. Juvenile court's a little bit harder to predict, I think, especially in the child welfare caseload, how many appeals are going to be handled or not. When we started our child welfare appellate division, we thought we'd just get a few every year, and that has not been the case. And so I think we try to be pretty cautious on those estimates, erring on the side of having the people available.
Very good.
Okay. And then the last one I have on there is Salt Lake County. Salt Lake County has an issue that a lot of counties have had, where we funded positions, it's coming close to a decade ago. And when the grant was originally funded, it was funding an entire position. And then over the years, as the market changes and as wages increase, the grant goes less and less towards funding an actual full position. And so the positions that we fund now to Salt Lake County, and this is similar to some other counties as well, is about half of what a full-time employee is costing nowadays. Salt Lake County's request, they kind of had a two-tiered request for those who took a look at that. One was to increase the amount of funding to come up to what it currently costs for a full-time employee for those positions, or in the alternative that that we basically make a lump sum grant amount to their personnel budgets that they can use accordingly. That I'm not supportive of that proposition just because it would be totally different than we do for any other county. And I think part of this may be coming more from their accounting department, just because it's kind of hard to, well, there's some administrative cost in tracking some of those different positions, but I don't see a reason to make an exception or to change the way that we're doing things for that purpose. So my recommendation is not to change anything with how we're doing the grants in Salt Lake County. Pam, I don't know if that affects you in any way, but and we did reach out to Salt Lake County, and I think with our concerns, and I got the impression that they will be fine continuing the way things are.
Yeah, like Rich and I's contracts for 2027, because we're on the different cycles. So those have been approved. So I think we're okay through 2027 for them to figure out how they want to go forward after that.
Yeah.
I mean, not speaking for them. I'm just saying our budgets are done.
Yep. Yeah. So those are the modifications, I think, that would require some approval from the commission. Commissioner Drexel had that question about Cache County. I can take a look at that if people want to talk amongst themselves or have some discussion.
I'm feeling verklempt.
Are you ready for a motion on the other ones?
Yes.
I'd make a motion, we approve the others other than Cache County at this time, all the requested shift.
Very good.
I'd
Anyone?
make a modified motion or propose maybe a slight tweak to the motion, and that would be to not approve the reallocation authority in Salt Lake County in terms of allowing them greater latitude to just assign these monies to personnel costs generally.
Okay.
And can I make a suggestion as well? And I'm not a commissioner, but maybe if this is appealing, we could also deny Cache County's modification, just keep it as is. The managing defender is currently handling that contract anyway, so it would just continue. There wouldn't be any substantive change or disruption to how things are going right now. It would just be that different piece while I look into the salary question that you had.
Yeah, I accept that amendment.
Okay, so so just to make sure it's clear for everybody, you want to say it again, Michael, just to say it with those suggestions?
Yeah, that the first level requests to shift money around is approved subject to holding not approving the Salt Lake County change or Cache County changes.
That sounds great. And then is there a second?
I'll second it, Tom.
Okay, Tom's the second. All right, any discussion or question to the motion? Okay, then let's go ahead. All those in favor of approving that motion, please say aye.
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 Are there any who oppose? Okay, we've got unanimity.
And just for the commission's information, there were these new requests. I'll run through these pretty quickly, but these again are mostly due to the addition of new courts in Utah County and Washington County. But I can take those needs to the governor and the legislature in the upcoming session. There were some requests for compensation increases. I mentioned the one in Salt Lake County, and you already voted. So I think that concludes my presentation. So I appreciate everybody. I know it takes
Hey,
a lot.
Matt.
Yeah.
Matt, can I just ask one question? Does that information that you're carrying forward, does that also include the COLA requests, or is that not part of that?
So there were two, there was a COLA request on the part of Tooele. They were the only one who asked for a COLA request. It wasn't clear exactly what that amount was. I did my best to approximate that. That was about $15,000. And then in Salt Lake County, that was more of a bringing things up to market. So that would be almost doubling the amount of the grant funded positions that are currently in place.
Okay, I guess that may be the question. That's why it was not clear for me. On if someone is tying it to a COLA, I feel like anything that's COLA related ought to be what the state's paying for a COLA, not what everyone else is paying. Is just my sense it is state money. I think that's safest and easiest. And then anything beyond that, to your point, would have to be it's a compensation, it's a change or a comparison, maybe bringing pay up to a level, but that's a separate thing to me.
Yeah. Well, and yes, and so I think the probably more persuasive piece is definitely the situations where the original grant has become so underfunded over the years that there needs to be a major readjustment there. And I think I agree that with the COLA, the COLA argument is less persuasive because not only does it vary from county to county, but then also those would be only applying to grant funded positions, and we have a hybrid where some are funded by grants, some are funded by counties, and it's just hard to account for different things happening in different counties in different states, or different counties in different systems.
Yeah.
Anyway, just that it may be a mood issue with Tooele. It sounds like but if it is going to be, it just seems like it ought to be what the state's doing, not what the counties themselves are doing, or it could get really messy.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, great. Yeah. I think Matt was thanking everybody, and this is a big thing every year for everyone to look at it, be thoughtful about it, and make the time for one of our longer meetings. Thank you all. I think it was excellent discussion, good decisions. Sometimes it's easier when we don't have more money, although we need it. So stay tuned on that, right? Gonna try to keep educating, helping people.
And Matt, and maybe just thanks to Matt, thanks to you and your team. I know this is a ton of work to get these ready. We have several in our agency that do it in different spaces. And I recognize how much work goes into these and all the conversations, and just thanks to your staff for the great job they do.
Yeah, it is so much work. Yeah.
Thanks, Tom, for the acknowledgement. Yeah, it is definitely a all hands on deck process with these meetings that we have with the counties, and some of you have been on those meetings as in your capacity with the different counties. There's a lot of information that we exchange and gather, and a lot of feedback. So thanks for the thanks, and thanks for my team for all the hard work that they do to get us here.
Yeah, great team. All right.
And not a second class team or a third class team. So
No,
We're
first
first.
class, all around.
this is D1.
The first class.
Thanks,
Maybe
everyone.
that's maybe
Yeah,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Senator. Any public comment? I don't think so. And then as far as the last thing, next meeting of this esteemed group is scheduled for July 17th at 2:00. Now that's,
A Friday.
is that a Friday? In mid-July? Is that true,
I think it's
Matt?
July 16 is what I've got on my calendar.
Okay, great. So there might be a typo on this agenda.
must be.
Must be, because it's usually Thursday. And then Matt's really good and his team, they look, and maybe in the middle of July, if there's not anything pressing, perhaps he'll just always look at that for us and let us know, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay, is that it, Matt?
I think that's it.
I think that's it. So gift of time, it's only 3:29.
I know. What are you going to do with that 30 minutes?